Сегодня член Политбюро ЦК КПСС, первый заместитель председателя Совета министров СССР.
In divided Berlin, television is a shared experience. On the west side of the wall, families are tuning in to the West German news.
Hier ist das deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Die Vorsitzenden der drei Bonner Koalitionsparteien CDU, CSU und FDP, Bundeskanzler...
Over the wall in the communist sector, most viewers will be tuned to the same news from the West.
Hier ist das deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau. Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren.
Der größte Teil der DDR, the majority of East Germans know the West through this window, an exotic world for East Germans.
Abends kommt der Klassenfeind.
In the evening, the class enemy enters the living room, a colleague who worked in East Germany once wrote.
Außerordentlich.
For those in power in East Germany, it is exceptionally difficult to build an independent socialism against West German television.
Was ist denn das? Amerikanisch?
The communist authorities know that 90% of East Germans get their news from the West. So here in the East Berlin newsroom, they fight capitalism with its own weapon. By playing Hollywood movies at the same time as the West's news, they hope to keep their own audience.
Wenn alles in Ordnung ist, werde ich 5-mal schießen, alle 5 Sekunden einmal.
Okay.
East German television is trying to stop their own watchers seeing West news and information programs. There are seasons of Burt Lancaster and Robert Redford and something like that. Entertainment against news from the West.
But after the film comes the message. With an East German audience safely tuned to Robert Redford, they're then fed a propaganda program called the Black Channel, which attacks the West's news.
Geheime psychische Experimente, CIA, Central Intelligence Agency.
The overall aim is to paint a horrid picture of our sordid, capitalist, morbid society.
Was ist denn das? Amerikanisch?
Hier ist das deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Central Intelligence Agency. CIA.
We're far more rigid about what we do and what we think we can get away with. We get away with very little, in fact, compared to the rest of world television. I think people are far more critical and cynical of things.
Stand by detail 2. Stand by Westminster.
We couldn't get away with half what the Americans get away with. I mean, think of their advertising. A newscaster says President Reagan has just died at the age of 77 from a coronary thrombosis. And now, you too can live longer if you... And we could do that. The saying is that we're the least worst television in the world, and I think that stands.
Stand by Julian, please.
In the Commons, Mr. Callaghan reported on the Dulles assassinations. The other party leaders expressed their sympathy for the families of the victims. Our political editor, Julian Haviland, was in the Commons.
Take a beat. You, Julian.
The Times ran members of Parliament because there seems to be nothing they can do about the unending tale of murder in Ireland.
In America, they actually believe everything they hear on television. President Reagan's only going to go on for 10 minutes on television. He'll persuade America whatever he wants to persuade them. Forget all the syndicated articles that are being written in the newspapers saying the opposite. Put it on television and it's believed.
But we know that the Sandinistas immediately began to persecute the genuine believers in democracy and to export terror. They went on to slaughter the Mosquito Indians by the thousands.
Lose it. Of those who listened to the speech, 65% now approve, 23% do not. Nearly half the country heard the speech.
A skillful user of the medium like President Reagan is able to talk directly to people at home and bypass the Congress or any other governmental officials. And so he can mount great support for whatever it is that he's pushing at the moment.
But what does anybody appear on television for if they're a politician, except to influence public opinion? They don't appear just to use up time. Of course they appear to influence public opinion.
Good evening, my fellow citizens.
Good evening.
Française, this is the decision I have made. a reduction in our troop ceiling of 50,000 more U.S. troops by April 15 next year.
We are also agreed that there should be a greater scope.
Television has such a massive effect on changing public opinion practically overnight.
Of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba.
¿Cómo debemos mirar nosotros?
Tout le monde sait.
Thank you, and good night.
You cannot govern a large and complex country without television anymore. I'm not sure you can govern it with television, but certainly cannot govern it without television.
Can you look out, Mr. Spencer, please?
It's during election time that politicians seek television the most. They believe that if television can sell soap powder, it can also sell them.
What television has essentially done to politics, it has taken issues out of politics and turned it into a personality contest. I regret saying that because I think that is not the way we choose leaders that mean anything for us.
Television means that it would be difficult for a man with a cleft palate to be elected, probably.
This is how television takes the issue out of politics. The political party stage spectaculars for the camera.
When there's a clash between the eye and the eye always predominates. If I were to say to you today that Ronald Reagan was having a bad day because he had staff problems, and there was dissension in his staff, and there was a difference in policy and dispute among his advisors, but what you saw was a confident Ronald Reagan standing in front of American flag with a lot of little American flags being waved in the audience and people cheering 4 more years. You wouldn't pay attention to what I say. You would pay attention to what you see.
Thank you very much. I won't be a holdout. Let's make it unanimous.
It would be impossible for a candidate to be elected today without television, to a national office.
I think there's only one party leader who's been chosen because of his television personality, and that is Mr. Neil Kinnock.
I thought that television had played such a key role in Kennedy's victory that it was important to maintain that television contact.
May I ask you, so that I don't look too naive, a tough question right off the bat? Whether I'm a Democrat or Republican?
I think Kennedy owed a lot to his success on television. I think Reagan owes an enormous amount. His experience in films, his relaxed style, I think, has been enormously important.
There's no question that Ronald Reagan is a superb communicator. Absolutely the best, better than Kennedy.
If politicians use television, why shouldn't the church? John Paul is the first television pope. Everywhere he goes, he is filmed by the Vatican's own television cameras, a unit he ordered personally to be set up.
I'd like to welcome you to God's People, the weekly Vatican Report. Our program is brought to you each week from the Vatican Television Center in Vatican City.
The Pope approved the foundation of this Vatican Television Center on 22nd October last year. That is the 5th anniversary of the beginning of his pontificate.
Holiness, your coming to us within these walls brings a great light into our darkness.
Is very good because is, I think, a special charisma. This capacity made of him a very good personality for the television.
If politicians and popes use television, then why shouldn't unelected leaders use it too?
Martin Luther King Jr. and all of us were using television and using it for good. And that was a major demonstration. People just said that we must complete this rally. We must start this march to make the evening news.
And if community leaders use television, why shouldn't revolutionary leaders use it also?
Take the clenched fist. It was television image, yes. For them, these were sensational events.
Consequently, they were putting it on television to gather their viewers and to push up the ratings for the commercial people who buy time into the television stations. This is why, in fact, that it was spread so rapidly.
And if television helped spread those images, did it help spread violence among the children of Northern Ireland? And did those images from Northern Ireland, in their turn, teach something to the miners' children? Eight out of 10 people on Earth now have been born since the coming of television. And today, as on every other day, 250,000 new babies were born, and 250,000 new television sets were manufactured.
What are you kids doing here?
Television can show you the face of the moon, but it can also show you the face and heart of man. And that's why this instrument is so crucial, and the people who run it have such an obligation.
Don't let Gotcha get you with the handcuff on. Roll 2 keys on the dice.
Next week, how it all began with the race for television.